Good evening. This is Joe Green, and just wanted to share a couple of thoughts with you real quick. This is a follow up on my earlier video about toxic masculinity, and this is toxic masculinity part two. And I just want to add a couple of things to my first video. I just encourage you that if there's any benefit to this video, anything you find edifying, please subscribe, like, and share. Also, subscribe to my YouTube channel so we can get a lot of information out to the people that need it. So, when we talk about the phrase toxic masculinity, one of the strategies that the ruling elite or those who want to gain control, they use, in George Orwell's book 1984, it's called newspeak, but they control language. They control language in order to control thoughts. And once you control thoughts, you can control the people, control the masses. And so what they do is, as they tear down the social structures and the Judeo-Western Christian society, it's a way of destroying yourself, right? It's a way to convince you to destroy the very institutions and foundational things that help to build strong communities and strong individuals, right? The example I like to use is, if I shot you with a gun, that'd be a bad thing. But if I gave you a gun and convinced you to shoot yourself, then that'd be very devious on my part, right? But basically that's what it is. Aldous Huxley, the writer of Brave New World, coined the term a revolution without bloodshed, or a revolution without tears. And basically it's a way to seize control, to gain control over the masses, and to get the masses to submit to the authority of the ruling class. For example, one of the strategies of the Marxists is to promote hedonism. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the term, hedonism is simply to convince people to live their life for the sake of pleasure, right? And so not living your life with goals or anything like that, but living your life to seek pleasure, right? There's different, I'm living my best life now is a catchy phrase. There was a term a little while back that the young people were using, live fast and die young, right? So it was like, just live for today, don't think about tomorrow. And so these are the type of concepts that they instill when you start talking about hedonism. When you look at popular culture, all the videos of your favorite artists or rappers or whatever, it's all about hanging out, going to the clubs, money, fame and fortune and all that other stuff. The Instagram models, their whole life is based on dressing up and posing and going to the beach and, living in fancy houses and driving fancy cars and all those type of things. And so subconsciously that convinces people that that's life's goal, is for pleasure, right? But we know that there's more to life than just living your life just to have fun all the time, right? It's okay to have fun, but not all the time. Now, this is an old concept, and that concept came from in the Bible, in the Garden of Eden with the serpent. The serpent, and here's a strategy that always affects mankind, is the serpent in the Bible came to Adam and Eve under the guise that he was giving them something, some information, some knowledge, some wisdom that would help them, but ultimately it was for their own destruction. And so the Bible talks about they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. He convinced humanity that eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil was in their best interest, but ultimately it was for their destruction. And so that's the strategy that we see here that's being employed by the ruling elite, is they bring you and present things to you that makes it seem as though it's for your own benefit, but ultimately it's meant for your destruction. So when we think about this whole term of toxic masculinity, we think about the feminist movement that looks to weaken men and therefore family and family structures, right? They've even convinced women that, the whole patriarchal husband and wife nuclear family is obsolete, that's not that's only meant to oppress women. This whole idea of chivalry, you think about in this day and age, chivalry is dead pretty much, because a lot of women want to be independent. They want to be strong. A lot of times they want to reap the benefits of being a woman, but they also want to have the same authority or power as a man, right? And so it's ultimately a way to destroy the nuclear family, when we think about hedonism, when we think about the over sexuality of women. So it tells women that they should be bold with their sexuality, right? They should show their assets off. You have people like these female singers, Rihanna and all that they teach women to be very sexual, right? But ultimately that sexuality that the women are told and lied to, they're lied to make it believe that that's empowering them, but ultimately it leads to their brokenness, right? So you have these women, young women especially, that they're very sexual, very provocative. They get in various sexual relationships, they get their hearts broken, and ultimately they become very bitter and fractured people, because of the lifestyle they were convinced was meant to empower them, but it ultimately is meant for their destruction. Right. I'm going to say that again. So if you think about this, they're over sexualizing women. So women many times get mistreated or abused or raped because they are sending a signal that they want to be identified for their sexuality. Right. Or they enter into sexually promiscuous lifestyles. Right. The Nicki Minaj's, the Cardi B, who is a stripper. She brags about her past life as a stripper. Everything that they do is to show off their physical attributes, their breasts and their boobs. They get boob jobs and breast implants to show off their sexuality. They dress very scantily. And so, of course, naturally, what that does is create an atmosphere where women are treated as sex objects, not as beautiful human beings that should be valued based on their intellect, their wants, their desires, and their dreams, and their personality. But they're not. They're being viewed as a sexual asset. And ultimately, it leads to destruction. It leads to brokenheartedness. It leads to broken relationships. And then you have a bunch of bitter, broken women because they've been convinced to pursue the very thing that was meant for their destruction. And we know that women weren't created like that. Women were created as honorable creatures, to be wives, to be mothers, to be respectful. The Bible talks about the Proverbs 31 woman, right? The woman who is very honorable. That's really what women are created to be. And so as we value our women based on their personality, based on their value as a human being, their intellect, and all those type of things, that's what brings fulfillment. Men and women both. Your true fulfillment is marrying and raising a family, raising children together, and living a life based on that paradigm. That actually brings long-term fulfillment, and those other lifestyles only bring death and destruction and bitterness and anger, and leaves you empty, right? But the powers that be are very clever at convincing you to pursue the very tools of your own destruction. So what does the feminist movement do and emasculating men, and to this whole thing, when we talk about Kevin Samuels and how he's really restoring some traditional values and ideologies in his speeches and his talks with people. A lot of people don't like it because it's not popular. It's part of the cancel culture that when someone goes against the grain, they try to cancel them. But fortunately, he's been very successful. He's talking about family values and just personal accountability and those type of things. We live in a culture that, as the feminist movement becomes stronger and stronger, there's no accountability for women. Men are always wrong, no matter what. If a man and a woman gets in an argument, the man is supposed to bow down and give into the argument, right? These are all the type of concepts that's being promoted. And it's really ultimately meant to emasculate men, right? And so men now are supposed to be afraid to be men because of cancel culture, because of this whole idea of toxic masculinity, and because of the rise of the feminist movement. You have even some of the pro-Black people that like the woman is God, she is the queen, mother earth, and all that other stuff. And there's some, we should value women. We should teach women self-esteem and self-respect. I tell all my children, as a young lady, I tell young ladies that, hey, you're a prize. God made you a prize for your husband. Right. And I tell the young men to honor women and honor themselves. That's what's honorable, and that's what brings fulfillment long term. Right. I tell all my daughters, look, when you meet a man, if he's not someone you can see as a husband and a father, then you need to pull back from him. Right. Because a lot of times they get caught up in these men that are no good, and they're just having fun. But then once you realize that he really is no good for you, and he's not a husband or father material, it's too late a lot of times. And now you're really broken. You go through the trauma of a broken heart or some kind of a traumatic breakup. You know, sometimes there might be a baby involved in it. And so it ends up not turning out well, right? Because when we buy into the lies that the world tries to promote, I also tell my my son and all the young men I mentored, when you find a young lady, look at her as, could she be the mother of your children? Is she wife material, right? If not, you should back off, because if you're just looking for a person of the opposite sex to have fun at a young age, there's a lot of negative stuff that comes from that, right? And then over time, we build baggage up because just going through one relationship after another, it just leaves us all broken, men and women. And so we have a lot of people, once you get to marrying age, now you're all jacked up. You got a lot of baggage, right? Because of broken relationships, flings, and all that other stuff. And so now, even when you're ready for a real relationship, there's a lot of baggage that you have to work through in order to get there. And so it's better to start off with a good foundation and not listen to what the world is trying to say, but listen to the wisdom of the ages, the traditional wisdom of as I said before, I'll use this term, and a lot of people probably aren't familiar with it, the Judeo-Christian Western idea of the family, of morality, and all those type of things, right? And so this whole we've gone away from traditional morality. We've really destroyed the family unit and the need for family, especially in the Black communities. Our biggest issue is not systemic racism. The biggest issue in the Black community is a lack of fathers, right? And male figures and male leadership. Because you understand, when you have strong fathers, then they teach their sons to be a man and how to treat a woman. They teach young ladies self-esteem and how a man should treat them. And so when you have a good father, a good male figure, usually the young lady won't settle for anything other than a man that's going to respect her like her father respected her, right? When young men see the example, then they learn not to look at a woman just for their physical assets, but value her as a person, right? And everything works out well when we stick to those particular tenets. And so here's a couple of things that, and again, this isn't going to be a long video, but here's a couple of things that you can that comes as a result of this second wave demonic feminist movement, right? That looks to emasculate men, to turn upside down the traditional family value of the family and family values, and the Judeo-Christian way of living. So, as I said earlier, it weakens men, right? And if you have weak men, then you have a weak family unit. And it limits, and here's what I said about being self-destructive for young ladies. If you have women who are emasculating men and really tearing down men and not trying to allow men to be men, then it limits your pool of good men. So when it comes time for you to date, when it comes time for you to find a father or a good provider or somebody who's going to be loyal and faithful to you, you're going to be limited because of the destruction of the male pool, right? The possibilities that you could have had for a husband. And ultimately, it leaves women empty and even more bitter than ever because of this vicious cycle of destruction and a lack of moral foundational principles, family values, and all those other type of things. And so we have to be careful. We have to have our eyes open. We have to understand that the traditional values, especially the biblical values, how the family structure has been set up by God, mother and father, husband and wife, raising your children, standing on the basic moral principles that not only the Bible has espoused, but what we have as a society held near and dear for many generations. You know, we're in a time now that the things that we thought were basic moral values now are laughed at or scoffed at, right? You can't even say that a man is a man nowadays because that's considered transphobic or hate speech. If someone is a virgin until they're married, many times that's considered out of date, or that's considered to be, kind of a prehistoric way of thinking. If you try to promote those family values and those traditional Christian family values, then they'll say you're judgmental or you're narrow-minded or all those type of things. But that's just because the powers that be have convinced us to that. And ultimately we end up promoting, defending, and chasing after the very tools that were meant to destroy us as individuals. It weakens the family, weakens the community, weakens individuals, and makes us more susceptible to be controlled and dependent upon a system that really doesn't love you like the kingdom of God does, right? God says he made you in his image and his likeness. He says that you're not a mistake, that you have value because God has given you value. You have gifts and talents that are meant to be a gift to the rest of humanity. And especially young ladies, you are a gift to your husband, and husbands, you are a gift to your wife. So save that gift and cherish it until the time where you can really enjoy each other and establish a family as God has intended it to. This has been Joe Green. Until next time, peace and blessings to you. Please subscribe to the channel. Please share the videos, and also please like it. Thank you. I hope that that this has been beneficial to you. Be blessed.